Anti-Semitism, Election 2020, Iraq, Iran, Bibi Netanyahu, North Korea. Oh yes, impeachment and Donald Trump are just some of the topics on the Casser-Jayne show this week, when I, Casser-Jayne, and my partner in politics, former White House correspondent Matthew Cooper, roar into 2020. Okay, I roar. Matt, not so much. On this, our first broadcast of the new year and a new decade. But here we are, well into a new century, and yet that old and ugly little thing called anti-Semitism has reared its ugly head once again. Election 2020, which has been the talk of the town since Donald Trump was elected way back when, is still 11 months away. But that is this year. Can November come too soon? A U.S. diplomatic installation has come under siege, the fortress that is the American embassy in Baghdad. Where do we go from here? Iran? And Speaker Pelosi has yet to send the Articles of Impeachment to the Senate. Trump roars. Let's get started. Here we go. My friend Matt Cooper, I want to wish you, first of all, a Happy New Year. We didn't get to speak over the holiday, and I hope it's a great one for you, my friend, and for all of our listeners as well.
Thanks. Same for you. Happy 2020. New decade.
New decade? Could it be we're entering the roaring 20s again? Maybe?
The something 20s.
We need to come up with something a little better than...
I think let's wait till 2022 before we get...
before we figure, I don't know, does history repeat itself or it doesn't? I'm never, in some ways it does, in some ways it doesn't. But I'll tell you what 2020 is. More than, maybe roaring or maybe not. But remember that election we've been doing for 4 years already? It's actually here.
Oh, my God. Hard to believe it's actually going to happen.
This is the year. This is the year. I mean, oh, my God.
It's still 11 months of, we're 10 months before.
Oh, God, headache.
But yeah.
But here we are. And how many days? A couple of weeks or month and a half to Iowa or something. So here we are. And we enter the new year, I think, with some changing going on. All right, big news this morning. Big news. Not so big news, but in a way it is kind of big news. Julian Castro is out. The only Hispanic. Gone, baby, gone. Interesting, huh?
Not that interesting.
It's giving you something to
since
play
his
with.
campaign never really took off. Here's another. it's another case of someone with what heretofore were considered some credentials. He'd been in the cabinet. He's mayor of a real city. No offense to South Bend, but he's mayor of a big city. He'd done some interesting things. But again, another kind of establishment-y type figure gets knocked off for more of we're a little bit more of an oddball set, with the exception of Biden. So kind of interesting.
I think interesting in the respect that
he never took off.
No.
Never really took off.
And you know why?
He had a bad demeanor at the debates, I think.
That was part of it. But he, this is, you got to have a sex appeal these days. Whatever level that sex appeal is on, you got to be sexy or nobody pays attention to you. And I'm putting sexy in quotes. I'm not talking about,
Right.
Yeah. And he just didn't have it. Didn't even have a twinkle. If you don't have sexy, you have to at least have a twinkle. And he was just dull, baby dull. Welcome to politics, in these times.
Yeah, I think Beto, I think Beto took up some of his oxygen early on.
Yeah, probably.
And, as the Texan in the race. And then Beto faded and, he just blew his chances at the debates.
And then he didn't learn the lesson of Kamala Harris. You brought that up. You mentioned that briefly. He went after the big boy on stage and people don't like it. They don't want to hear it.
Not in a very good way.
No, not even not in a good way at all. But I want to. There's so many things to catch up on, but I want to stay with the election because I wrote down a few things that I saw as a trend going on here. I'm going to name them all, and then we'll go back and discuss them. First of all, who ever thought Biden would be this resilient? Nobody.
Right.
That's extraordinary.
Well, let's see what happens when the voting starts, but I agree.
Okay, that even lasted this long. He's beat his own record, right? In one sense, in his previous attempts. Bernie has a heart attack, and he just brought in $34 million.
Yep.
Oh my God! Nobody cares about his heart attack. Remember back in the day when you and I were growing up, a heart attack meant the end of your life, whether you survived it or you didn't.
Right.
Buttigieg, who knew that he would be so viable? Andrew Yang, another one. Hello. He's adorable, though, I gotta say. What a personality.
Yeah, he's doing pretty well.
Right. And then something else, and we'll get into this in more detail in a minute, but I wanted to throw it out. Non-whites don't prefer non-white candidates. That's huge. I think that's huge. So let's start with that. The blacks are hanging on to Biden. I think a lot of people probably are shocked by all of this.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a rationale to it. I mean, Obama didn't really take off among African Americans nationally until he did well in Iowa. But there's no one who's, there hasn't been an African American candidate of his strength, of his abilities. I think Booker,
doesn't have it.
Booker hasn't gotten there, and Harris didn't get there, and Biden is a very known quantity. I think his loyalty to Obama counts for a lot among African Americans, and look, he's just he's in a pretty good. Yeah, he's in a good place with them, but he's been in a good place with a lot of voters too. I think they're just. I think it's a good thing. I'm so against all this politically correct stuff. It makes me nauseous. Yeah, no, people are not tribal voters. I mean, and by tribe, I mean just.
Of course, tribal is correct.
Like Jews voting for Jews and gays voting for gays, and it's and Californians voting for Californians. I mean, it really doesn't matter.
And I think that's interesting because in the rest of the zeitgeist of the world, in America these days, tribalism is everything. I'm fascinated by the fact that it doesn't quite translate into politics on the voting level, and I think that's something.
Yeah. No, I think that's. I think that's right. I think that's always a kind of misunderstanding of politics that people are going to, just respond ethnically. I mean, there was certainly no Hispanic boom for Castro. I mean, just that's one example.
Right. So I do. I think that's an important point to make. In fact, I think that's an article for you to write. I'm giving it to you, friend. Go for it, because it is one of the weird holes. Let's talk Andrew Yang, because he is fascinating to me. Is he fascinating to you?
Well, sure. I mean, he's, I mean, look, clearly we've got Biden to an extent, Warren and Klobuchar is kind of the more traditional candidates. And then you've got kind of, the insurgent kind of oddballs in a way, like Yang, a socialist in Bernie, and, the mayor of a, city of 40,000,
who's not the mayor anymore, I think, as of January 1st.
Yes, as of yesterday. Right? Yeah, there's an attraction to the oddball and to the outsider that certainly was true in the Republican Party in, 2016. And Yang, but getting back to Yang, look, anyone who seems semi-human, is helped. I think Biden is, seems like a human.
That's it. I think that you hit the nail on the head. That's what it is.
Like a human. Yeah. And Buttigieg, although he's kind of a stiff, he still seems like a human. And Bernie seems like a human.
No, I think that's true. I think I think that if we were to define what it is that people want, they want somebody that they want to have sitting at their own kitchen table.
Yeah, exactly.
That's where we are in the 2020s, and I think that's going to go a long way to show us who remains in and who doesn't, and who survives and who doesn't. And that gets us back to Booker, because I think that's one of the problems with him.
With who? I'm sorry.
With Booker. I think the reason he doesn't catch on is because he doesn't come across as authentic, by the way. Because I think she has her moments, and every time she gets real on stage, you hear the old, it's her moment. She still hasn't had it, by the way, but it's her moment. But I think that's it. I think you and I have just defined what it is people want in their president these days. That's it. Point made.
No, I don't really think.
What?
It's hard to say with Booker and then no, this contradicts what I said 2 minutes ago.
That's all right. Go ahead.
I don't think he comes across as inauthentic. I think there's just something. I just feel like he missed the mark in the party a little bit. What do you mean? In the party, the meaning like having a party or the party Democrat Party?
No,
I just feel like his whole pitch has been sort of optimism.
Oh, I see. I see what you're saying.
And then he's, which
bad
is not
campaign.
Quite the tone of the moment. And then he's, I don't know, he's just a little hot for the medium. Like it's, I don't know. There's something I'm an admirer. I mean, I grew up on a town that borders on Newark.
Yeah.
And I know his history well. And, I'm very impressed by him, but there's something about this campaign that hasn't worked.
It's lackluster. Yeah. There's no Klieg lights shining on him because he hasn't said anything that makes it exciting.
He has his moments in the debate. It's not like he's blown the debates, but I can't quite put my.
It's not as I don't think he has. I said it in the beginning to you. I just never thought of him as presidential. I don't care whether he's a Rhodes Scholar or whatever. I just kind of like he drifts. He's he's not a standout for what and that may be his campaign problem. They didn't define him well, and I think it's too bad. He's miscast. He's miscast.
But there's something that's not quite working.
Right.
I can't totally identify why it didn't. But,
right. Let's get back to Biden for a second. Biden. It's interesting to me. He said that he would, he's got something going. Or we just had this whole event in Iraq, and we're going to talk about it in a minute, where the embassy, the biggest, and I think was supposedly one of the more secure, was just, taken over in a way. I mean, it was like, it ended okay, but it didn't have to end okay. But it brings up the Middle East. It brings up Iran again, and we're going to talk about those things in a minute. But I want to bring it up because Biden, who it gives sort of an opening to, on the aspect of the mess that Trump has made in foreign policy decisions, and I don't think anybody, are the big boys on his in the Republican Party or the Democratic Party are thrilled with the mess that he's created in foreign policy. But it gives Biden an opening, except for one tiny little detail, and I wanted to bring this up to you because I wanted to see what you thought. He voted for that second Iraq war, which years ago finished off Hillary in a sense and finished off him. Does it matter as much this time? Do people get it? Is it now when time goes by and you put that vote in its proper context? Does it help his credentials as, look, Trump is not a foreign policy whiz, and we bring Biden in, he cleans up our relationships with all of our friends and enemies overseas. What are your thoughts?
I don't know the answer, but I think it's the power of the vote is diminished after 17 years. And, it's true, Obama was against it, and that had enormous power in 2008 as a contrast to Hillary. But then, he went on to, keep and maintain, the war in Afghanistan and to a lesser extent the Iraq situation for 8 years. So I just don't think the original vote has as much resonance. I don't know. I mean, the one sort of peace candidate, and I put that in quotes, right. The one peace candidate was Gabbard, who's dropped off the map. So I don't know. I don't think I mean, let's see if Trump can make hay of it if Biden's the nominee, but I don't think that's a hindrance to him, at least for now.
Yeah, I do think it's interesting though. And here's the deal with Trump. Remember him? We haven't talked about him yet, but we'll get there. But the thing with him, he can take a molehill and make it into that mountain quicker than anybody I've ever seen in my life. And so I do think that that's out there. The other thing with Biden is, the money was coming in today. I saw somewhere, I don't know if it's been verified, that there was something to the tune of, he might have raised $11 million.
Yeah, I sort of have a theory, which is like people don't
Think he needs
seems
it.
like he seems like GM that metaphor doesn't work these days, but like he seems like a big success. It's like giving money to Chase Manhattan. Right?
Yeah, that's how
JP Chase. Like he seems successful. He's a big front runner. He's an establishment guy. Do you really want to write $100 check to him?
Right. And
I don't think so. I bet when you break down that money, most of it is pretty big money. I just don't think he's motivated a check writing base the way, Bernie has to.
Well, Bernie's getting the kids. He's getting the kids. He's into 5 or 6 years of this. That's the thing you want to talk about, Bernie.
He can keep going back to these people.
Right.
I mean, they've all given 12 cents. And
does he have a chance?
Yeah, I don't see why not. Let's just, game out the best scenario for Bernie. Let's say he's in the top 3 in Iowa, right? And he wins New Hampshire, beats Warren. Let's say Warren comes in 3rd in New Hampshire, her neighboring state, behind Biden and Bernie. After that, I think Nevada's a good state for him. It's a strong union state. I think the Hispanic vote's pretty up for grabs. Let's say Biden wins South Carolina, but then Bernie's still strong and he wins Nevada, and then they duke it out in the rest of the country. I mean, that's I think it's a long shot for him to win, but I think it's a long shot for everyone to a degree.
Well, I don't know. I just don't see.
I think it's unlikely.
Yeah.
But,
I don't think the Democrats will let him win.
Everyone was, a month ago, everyone was like, "Oh, Warren's putting him out of business."
No, I never felt that way, and I think she's finished. To be honest with you.
Well, let's see. She wins New Hampshire primary. She's back.
Yeah, no, I think she's finished.
I don't think it's feeling that way.
Yeah, no, she dropped the ball though. That's what's so fascinating with Payne, because the minute she did the same thing, by the way, on the Pocahontas stuff. When she gets nailed, yeah, go ahead. I totally agree.
Well, I totally agree that with Pocahontas, sometimes the joke is so good and and so effective that you kind of have to roll with it a little bit. Because that Pocahontas line, I mean, whether you hate it or not,
right?
It is funny. There's no way. I mean, I know it has obviously an offensive quality to it. I'm not ignoring that for Native Americans and such, but it's also kind of a breakthrough kind of line, and you either have to kind of roll with it or have a witty retort. But her sort of humorless response, like that initial film she released where she talks to her geneticist and he's like, "Yes, it's true, you are 1-864th Cherokee," and
it's true.
I mean, she does have all the charm of a proctologist.
Oh, ouch. But this is what I was going to say on that note. I think, yeah. I was going to say that's right. She's exhibited a couple of times now, and then she did it again in the last thing with the cost of what the Medicare for All would cost. She retreats to a place she shouldn't retreat to. And then she loses it. Now, in the case of the Pocahontas thing, she messed up badly, and I don't know whether everybody allowed her a step back in or she earned it.
Yeah.
But I don't know what she did. She took exactly the same retreat when they nailed her on the money aspect of Medicare, and again she retreated. Will she now come forward? Is that her style? But right now it isn't looking pretty for her in that respect, and I thought it was worth pointing out. That and to me that would translate to how she deals with foreign policy issues and all sorts of issues that might come up in a presidency.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So
I mean, I do think this does go back to the strength of Biden in his kind of human quality, because I mean, look, Pete's obviously had a remarkable campaign, but you think back to his biggest misstep when there's that awful shooting in South Bend.
Oh God, it was a mess.
He goes back there and he's 10 feet from the mother, standing there giving a little speech. And I mean, you imagine Biden or Obama or Bill Clinton in that situation.
He seems fearless, Pete.
Fearless.
Yeah.
I think he's more just, my point is he's really more of a stiff. And
no, I think he's interesting. I think he's interesting.
Such an
okay.
unemotional response. And
because there's an aspect to him that strikes me as fearless, detached, unemotional. I do what I need to do, and I'm cold. And you see that on stage, by the way, at some of the debates. When he does when he does lock into somebody to shoot them the missile, boy, I'll tell you, it's intense when he does that, because it's completely, and fearless may not be the right word, it might be cold, calculating.
Well, he did well at some of them. He took a good shot at Warren.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. He goes boom.
He was Klobuchar exchange, not great.
Yeah, well, yeah.
I know what you mean.
Yeah.
I think his stiff is going to
hurt him.
I think he's stiff.
Yeah. Well, I don't think he has a chance anyway. So, I mean, it's all fun for the media to play a game with him and raising lots of money and he
and as I've said before on this show, the real question with Pete Buttigieg is America ready to elect a Vulcan?
Or Alfred E. Newman.
Yeah, or Eddie Haskell.
Yeah, he's like, oy. He's like, oy.
We've never elected a Vulcan. So.
Yeah, not yet. We haven't. I don't know.
Someday.
Yeah, who knows? We've been close. Did we hit everybody we wanted to talk to about who's running in the Democratic primary? Did we get them all in?
I think we covered
okay.
The survivors. So I guess you were proving right about the Klobuchar surge. We're not really.
No.
That either happens this week or it's not gonna.
And I don't know where that leaves her in any of this. I mean, is she vice president material?
No.
Yeah.
No, I don't think so.
So there we go. Bye, Amy. It's been swell. We need you in the Senate anyway, and that's truth. She is. Okay, I'm jumping to something that we really need to talk about, and that's this anti-Semitism thing that's going on.
Not good.
I've been talking to people all over the place, and I was talking to a friend of mine yesterday and I said, I happen to be Jewish, you're Jewish, but just as an American citizen, and she's like, don't talk about it on air. This is why it happens. They're getting press. The more you talk about it, the worse it's going to get. It's blah, 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 blah. But I want to go back to something that I wrote about in my storied book, A Year in My Pajamas with President Obama, the book that I did back in 2008 from the columns that I'd written for papers and stuff overseas, in which I went to task with President Obama at the time. I don't know if you remember this, Matt, but I took Obama to task for starting up on Israel.
No, I remember.
And the Palestinians. And I said, this is not a good thing. That since World War II, no matter what the government's position was on Israel and on the Palestinians or anything else, it has been, you have that conversation behind closed doors and you keep it out of the public arena. And I think in that column that I had said something to the tune of letting the genie out of the bottle. Matthew, I tell you trace this back to then. And so there is no surprise we are where we are right now. Because the Democratic Party has played the game and, forgetting what Trump has done, and he certainly has ginned up the wackos. But the Democratic Party gets some of the blame for this as well, because they're going along with this. And they are conflating Israel with and religion, the religion of Judaism, with the country of Israel, and the position that a nation has to take to preserve its, self-defense, and making that an issue of it's the Jews versus the Arabs publicly. And I think there's a lot to that as to why we've got this surge. And it's not only one thing, but I think that is something in it. And I was curious as to what your thoughts were or are.
Well, I think I disagree with you. I think just as your friend who said, don't go on air and talk about the anti-Semitism was wrong, I think to try to link the current spate of it to Obama's...
Not only Obama.
Of the Democrats' criticism of Israel, I think is a stretch. I mean, we've seen this latest surge since, the U.S. move of the embassy to Jerusalem and our end of opposition to settlements in the West Bank after, 40 years of policy. So, I think causality is kind of a stretch here. I just think, anti-Semitism is a 2,000-year-old sickness in the human soul. And it happens on the left, it happens on the right, it happens all over. And its eruption is in some ways as predictable as it is sad, but
we haven't had it
now.
Like this in this country since World War II.
I do think it's worse, but I'm not as convinced that I would lay this at the Democrats.
I didn't just say, let me, I want to be clear, just saying, because I said Trump and unleashing the lunatics on the right, yada, yada, yada. I think all of that's in there, and I want to make that clear, and I don't think it's one thing, I think it's all the above. But I do see, if you look at the trends from that time forward, it is there. But I am concerned about what's going on in the Democratic Party. I think you are too.
Well,
on the whole.
Sure. I mean, I do think the Obama election ignited a lot of white nationalism, which, brought in its, wake not only anti-black virulence, but anti-Jewish as well.
You were listening to The Hallie Casser-Jayne Show. The Hallie Casser-Jayne Show posts new podcasts Wednesdays, 3 p.m. Eastern at HallieCasserJayne.com and is available wherever you listen to your podcast. Find us on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, on all your favorite apps. You'll find the podcast on your Alexa device, too. Just say The Hallie Casser-Jayne Show. Oh, and come play with me on Twitter at The Hallie CJ Show.
Look, this latest, surge in especially in the New York area is deeply disturbing. And it's deeply disturbing. And I do think it's viral in the sense that, people, when you have one, it tends to be followed quickly by others. And,
forgive me if I missed it because, over the holiday I was doing other things, but did we hear anything from the President of the United States denouncing what happened?
Yeah, he denounced the Monzi attack, and as he did the Jersey City one.
By the way, both surrounding where I grew up in New Jersey.
Yeah, up in Rockland County.
Yeah, Rockland is, where we used to go across the border to drink because you were 18.
I thought you were going to say something innocent.
No.
Rye Playland.
That too. We went there too.
Okay.
Right. And Jersey City was, just south.
Well, it's physical attacks on the visibly Jewish Hasidim.
Who have moved into all that area, Englewood, where I grew up.
And look, I think, there's been a sense for a long time that if you walk through, Paris or, Leipzig.
Yeah, take off your kippah.
Take off your kippah, and if you're going to synagogue, you're going to get a pat down. But that was not the sense in New York City, of course, with a Jewish population that must be greater than Tel Aviv. And
anyway, I find it's unnerving and it's terrifying.
I mean, there's no question it's deeply unnerving. I think the response was slow out of the mayor's office, and not good.
Not good at all, and we need to keep an eye on this as a topic of conversation because I don't think this is by any means over. I think it's going to get a lot worse. Personally, that's my before it could get quote unquote better.
I think there's some anti-Semitism is its own thing, but there's something going on with these church attacks too. That's sort of there is something kind of.
I was going to bring that up, except
anti-religious, or I don't even know if it's anti-religious, but I'm stunned that we've had so many really sick church attacks as well.
I don't think I don't compare them. I'm trying to, because the one that happened last week, I thought got overblown in terms of the attack compared to what had been going on in New York. And other places with the anti-Semitism, and I thought, this is like one of those tag stories. Okay, it's raining in New York, but it's snowing in Iowa. I thought I don't see the equating the two. I'm not to say that something isn't going on there, but I think it gets back to the fundamentalism thing, and I think a lot of people are looking at all of that like, what the heck is going on with these fundamentalists? And,
the victims or the...
No, I think that, some of the church shootings
are from...
could be in relation to that.
Well, I don't know. We've had fundamentalist victims, and I don't think we've had fundamentalist perpetrators. So.
No, that's what I'm saying. They're going after the fundamentalists.
Well, this last church was not a fundamentalist church, right?
Every church in America today is fundamentalist. Have you been to them?
No. You've got a lot of mainline.
Well, yeah, I'm telling you.
And the fundamentalist one that was attacked.
You need to come down south, honey. When's the last time you were down here?
Oh, please. I lived there. I don't
Oh, my God. What's going on here?
Plenty mainline process. But anyway.
Don't get me started.
I'm agreeing with you. It's all sick, deplorable.
Right. And whatever. Let's move to the Middle East for a minute. As long as we're talking Judaism, let's start with Netanyahu. Now he's asked for immunity from corruption charges, and I'm seeing. I want to bring this up to you, Matt, because I'm seeing a lot of people. He's another Trump. I don't share that point of view. I followed this man's career intensely for a very, very, very long time. And where he is today versus maybe where he was 7 or 8 years ago certainly is evolutionary, as would happen with anybody who's been prime minister of a country for that long, and particularly one under siege like Israel. But I don't think he's Trump on any level. He's an easy mark for a lot of different reasons. He certainly plays Trump, uses Trump uses him. There's that happens. But I'm kind of like, I don't want to see equivocation here, because I don't think it's fair. I'm curious as to what you're thinking.
Well, I don't think he's like Trump. I think they're quite dissimilar. Trump erupted on the political scene, whereas Bibi's been at it for decades, and Bibi's smarter. Bibi's more wily. Bibi
kept Israel safe for a very long time when others couldn't.
Yeah, I mean, he's more like Nixon in the extent that he's benefited from his enemies, and he's had a decades-long career, and people may not love him, but they think he's tough enough for the job. And he's got, a corruption taint. But I don't think he's like Trump either, no.
Yeah, and I think that's important because I'm watching the press on a whole, and I don't like to do that a lot because we, you and I being sort of members of the press, but they do get on memes, and this one's not. This is not. There's like an underlying anti-Israel, anti-Semitism thing going on even in the press that concerns me. I had to say that.
Well, you may not know as many press as I do because.
I'm talking even worldwide. I'm not just talking about America right now.
Oh yeah. Okay. Well, I agree. I mean,
Yeah, we got to.
It's too many reporters who are fond of Bibi, but on the other hand,
You've got to be careful here with the way, and I feel like I wanted to point all of that out on this
look,
issue.
Bibi is a commanding figure in Israeli history. There's just no getting around it.
Yeah,
as big as as important to the history of the country as.
And I think lost it. Yeah, and I think
he's had a big presence.
He has. And lost in that presence, I want to say this, lost in that presence, Matt, is the fact that he has brought Israel out of one of its darker periods since its beginnings, with the going after Israelis. And remember the buses blowing up, and I mean, it was
some of it's happened on his watch. Yeah.
He cleaned it up, though. He cleaned it up. He said, he cleaned it up. I mean, it's a relatively safe place to be. It's not perfect, but it's relatively safe.
Yeah.
Right.
You and I disagree whether, in the long run, Israel is going to be secure as a Jewish state and democratic state, having, millions of Palestinians under the Israeli flag.
Right. I know. I don't know. I want to just say on that score, I think it's an ever evolving story, and my position on it is where it is now, not where it is in the future, because the future is going to get us to where it has to go. I'm convinced of that, but I think right now in its current state, nobody is ready for a separate Palestinian state. It's just
yes. I mean that's not happening now.
Yeah, that's what I
think he's. Look, a lot of things have gone his way. The sort of tacit alliance with the Gulf states and the Saudis against Iran has helped him a lot. You know
who I think is interesting in this picture? Jordan. Remember how the little king was so in the forefront of all of it, and he was calling the shots? He's gone.
Well, he's just, overwhelmed. I mean, they've got they've like practically doubled the population with refugees.
Well, that's where, you'll forgive me, but that's where they came from. That's where they belong. But that being said, I just think the dynamic.
We're talking about Syrians.
Oh, no, you're talking about Syria. No, I'm talking about Jordan.
I'm talking about the number of Syrian
refugees who have gone to Jordan. I see what you're saying. Yeah, right.
Yeah, they're not.
No, well, that's a mess. That's a messy situation. Yeah,
by the Assad coronation.
Right, and because America's handled that so well.
Well, I don't know if we're culpable.
No, but I think that different president in a different time would have.
I'm not going to defend Obama on Syria, but I'm also not going to blame him for it.
Yeah, well, no, but you know what I'm saying.
I know what I know. Yeah,
you know what I'm saying, darling. I mean, there it is. Okay, so let's move on. Let's talk quickly about Iraq and Iran and the nightmare over there, because it's a mess. We're going to wind up in a war with Iran. Because it looks
Trump. Trump, you don't know. I mean, I still think not. But look, the Iranians love using their proxies. Whether it's in Gaza or in Syria or in Iraq and Yemen. I mean, they fighting big proxy wars, and I guess we should have seen the Baghdad embassy would start to look like the South Vietnamese embassy.
Oh, God, scary, huh?
Point. But it's very, we built, this isn't just an embassy.
It's a fortress.
It's the biggest in the world, and it's enormous. It's built like a fort. And, it was like the Alamo for a while there, It was not looking good.
No, and I think it's telling that they got in as they got through the green thing.
Yeah. And our friends, the Iraqi government weren't exactly, falling over themselves.
I'd say not. They did exactly that. Yeah.
Protesters. So, the Iranian hostage crisis still resonates deeply. And,
keep your eyes on Iraq and Iran, folks. That's what Hallie's saying.
I think George W. Bush did more to empower Iran than.
Absolutely.
than any Prince of Persia in 1,000 years.
God!
I mean,
And it's scary. I want to say the word Afghanistan, and I want to say that deaths are way up in Afghanistan. Trump's talking about pulling out troops. I just thought I'd throw that out there, right? But let's also talk quickly about North Korea, because I think that's also a mess. Because his good buddy, he thought he could charm the young one.
Yeah, that's
Hello.
He's been played from the beginning there.
Yeah. Okay. So I think we don't have to go further on that, do we? I think we're getting the picture. Impeachment. Nancy's going to hold out for how long? Let me throw three things out, and then we can go back. Polls: 2 out of 3 Republicans want witnesses, Matt.
Right.
And Pompeo's not going to Ukraine. I think those all go under the the same headline in a sense. I think it says she holds up through at least the State of the Union, so that he's facing impeachment when he gives a State of the Union address. I think that's part of it. What do you think?
Yeah, it's an interesting marker. I don't know. I mean, there's a little movement in the Senate for witnesses, a little bit. So, she might get what she wants. I suspect not, but we'll see. And, as far as the Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, not going to Ukraine is scheduled this week because of the Iraq-Iran crisis. Yeah,
Yeah.
It's kind of on the board. It is a legitimate, crisis, but that's a hell of a signal to the Ukrainians and the Russians not showing up.
What's the signal for those out there who may want to ask you that question?
Yeah. What's the signal?
Yep.
Oh, I think it's like, and the whole question has been, are we going to support Ukraine or not? And did the president withdraw support because of private interest? And now for the Secretary of State to give up a visit to Ukraine, unless he quickly hustles back there, I think it's going to be seen in Moscow and Kiev and Washington as, the administration back to undercutting Ukraine.
Well, they did what? They backed up their cut. What did you just say?
I said unless he goes back to Ukraine,
right.
Unless he goes there after withdrawing the trip, it's going to be seen in Moscow and Washington and Kiev as undercutting Ukraine.
I think I think the whole world should see it for what it is, which is he's going to protect himself first. It didn't look like the right move to be sending a Secretary of State to Ukraine at the time. That's what I think. It's a game for Trump always. Self-preservation. Yeah.
Well,
yeah. Right.
Clearly.
In that vein, I want to talk about Miss Susan Collins again. Every day I tweet the same tweet. Today is a great day to tell Susan Collins to go herself. I don't know if you watched this. This is the only thing that I caught because I told you I was off doing my thing the last couple of weeks. First, Trump announces he's going to support her for her reelection, and that within hours, she then puts out her statement that she says that she's not thrilled with the leader, McConnell, saying, I'm with Trump. And then she goes to the next step, which is, she would support witnesses. You know what? This woman is the most disingenuous moron, arsehole. I'm sorry. She offends me. She will play this game out all the way to the end. And you know what she's going to do at the end? Vote with Trump. It's like, stop. Why does the press give her press?
They might let her vote against it. But yeah.
It's Dory. I mean, at least when what's her name from Alaska does it, she sticks to her guns. And let's not forget Susan Collins on the Kavanaugh vote. And Kavanaugh has shown all the way down the line since he's been put into, position there. He's going to do exactly what he promised her he wouldn't do. He's going to destroy Roe v. Wade. This thing with Susan Collins makes me nuts. Sorry. It's my one time during the show. That's okay. I'm doing pretty well.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, but I just, I'm telling you, Matt, this woman, this is why politics has the name that it has for these days.
Yeah, well, this is why she's the number one Democratic target.
Right, and I hope the hell they get her out of there.
Seat, I think.
Yeah. I mean, it's time for her to go. And she leads kind of an interesting life. Anyway, she hasn't lived there in years. I mean, she and her husband have this cushy little life in Washington, where they like to play their parlor, thing. I mean, she's long left her home state. Anyway, she'll be back a lot wearing fur coats and whatever, because she's a Republican. Real fur.
No, I don't think that's her.
So she tries to get herself reelected.
She's a make.
I'm sorry. I find this woman just offensive. I really do. Because
well, last impeachment, she just laid down her mark. She said, I'm voting against, and she voted against.
Yeah. Well, that woman, I think, has long gone anyway. I think we have a different Susan Collins these days. But I did want to go back and look to see how Trump endorsed her and what happened in the next 48 to 72 hours thereafter, and what's been going on with her since. It's really telling about who this woman is, and she's the reason we need to change our politics. I was thinking, politics, when did, a question that I would love to know the answer to, where are the specifics to it? When did politics stop being a calling and become a business? And,
well.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
I don't know.
There have always been times, in our political history where, there were those who were one way and there were those who were the other. But it was always, for the most of our growing up years, there was a different breed of cat in politics. And there wasn't the money in politics. Maybe that was the reason why. Get rid of Citizens United, the whole game changes. That would be lovely. Okay, I want to talk about Florida very quickly. Trump is still down in the polls here, which is so fascinating.
Yeah, I see he's down, and
I'm fascinated by that.
Yeah, bad.
And we got a Republican governor who's very well liked.
Right. He's one of these ones
who came in and went down the center.
Right, they came in with a big bark and a little less bite.
Right.
Once they were in.
Yeah. So this is going to be interesting to see what happens in Florida. And speaking of people coming in with a bark and a little bit bite, that was a conversation we had over a Christmas dinner at my house, and that was the fact that Trump could have been such a different president, and why he chose to be who he is. And I thought, and if you look back at that, you say to yourself, wow, that's fascinating. I mean, he came in, he was an independent in a way. He could have embraced Hillary. He could have embraced the Dems. He could have ruled right down the middle. He could have been the great father who came and saved America from its crazy. And instead he went the other route. And everybody was asking me, why do you think he went the other route? And my only answer is that he's owned by Russia. Because what other reason can you possibly think for him to play the game that he's playing now, other than he's mentally ill? Real quick, what are your thoughts on that? Anything?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he could ever have been a great uniter and a great, president. I just don't think it's in his nature to do it. But he could have been, 20% more strategic. I mean, he could have done the infrastructure bill first,
right,
gotten that done, but he's all George Wallace, and he's all just like into getting people revved up, and he's just not capable of more. I don't, he's so driven by, doing everything on Obama. And, he's got this crush on Putin.
Crush on Putin. It's interesting you raise Obama, and I'm going to go there very quickly with you, because if I have in my mind's eye that initial meeting with the two of them, great friends in the Oval, and how quickly that went away. And I don't know what the heck happened. I don't know whether you know what the heck happened. I don't know if any reporters know really what was the bottom line crazy on that, but it became a hate, not a dislike, a hate. And I think that rules 95% of what Trump is doing.
Remember how he had to suffer through Obama's jokes about him at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. That's probably half the reason he got in the race.
Really fascinating.
Look, he hates Obama, and he's a person of enormous, narcissism and vanity. Normally someone can grow up enough that, he's president who they've defeated, Ford and Carter, Clinton.
Yeah, right.
They can, have a conversation about the state of the country that's not animated by personal animus, but, he's incapable. And look, he's a nut job. It's become normal for the president of the United States to, do witness intimidation while someone's testifying, or to call his ex-secretary of state a moron.
It's phenomenal. It's just phenomenal.
We've just become inured to it, but it's who he is.
I guess it's who he is, but it's sad. I'm gonna sort of end on the economy because there's something that I think is interesting with that. Everybody's yakking about how wonderful the Trump stock market is and the economy is so terrific, blah, blah, blah. Right. I think it's pretty well established that that's true for the upper classes, and that, it's not translating down to the lower middle class people as well. But I also want to bring up something that is not talked about a lot. And everybody's talking about this Trump stock market, Matt. And if you compare it to Bush and Trump and Obama, it stinks. Go back and look at the numbers, because they had both. Everybody else had much better percentage-wise growth in the stock market than Mr. Trump has. Little non-reported fact.
Not so great for George W. Bush. Right?
Well, but better, even even though all that crap happened and we can blame him for what happened in 2008, yada, yada, yada. But I want you to just go look at that for me, and then maybe we discuss it next week. It's not what people think it is. The numbers are not all that. They look great, but if you look at trajectory, not so great.
Right, gotcha.
Yeah. So I think that's important to whatever. So, as we bring this to a close, our first show of the new year, anything you wanted to talk about?
No.
Are you going to propose to me?
I just want to wish you a happy new year.
You too, my love. Absolutely.
You were great.
You were better.
You were great.
We're both great. We're terrific.
All right. Good luck.
But I didn't. But I did not get my what for the first show.
Oh yeah. I should have done it at the. I don't know when. I should. But could be.
Oh, thank you. I missed my could be.
It's your weekly could be.
That's my could be. Going with the title for the show: Trump is all George Wallace. That's a great quote.
Yeah, I'm not the first to say that. But
well, I hadn't heard it, and I liked it, so I love it. Good night, George.
All right, good night.
Thank you for tuning in to The Hallie Casser-Jayne Show, a production of Resec, LLC. The Hallie Casser-Jayne Show posts new podcasts Wednesdays, 3 p.m. Eastern, and is available at HallieCasserJayne.com and on all your favorite apps. Be sure to visit us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and follow me on Twitter at The Hallie CJ Show. Until next time, this is Hallie Casser-Jayne.